Hello, for those of you who are new, I just wanted to clarify. I am not a minister, I'm a member of this congregation. I do not have a license that authorizes me to give any spiritual insight whatsoever. So when I get to chat with you, I am very lucky. First, because I get to get out of the nursery. And also because I have a chance to wrestle with some of the struggles that I personally have in life, in public. So on second thought, this may be a bad idea. But luckily, I love and appreciate you all. So I hope we can think about these things together. And afterwards, if you'd like to correct any of my foolishness, you're welcome. When I was a child, I lived at the end of a gravel lane, at the end of a gravel road, on the ruins of a small town in Nebraska. Every day of my life, I heard the crunch, crunch of gravel, and I came to appreciate some things about it. There's extra traction on a winter day, and there's extra give in deep piles when you're walking on the road in the summer. When I and my siblings learned to drive, however, I came to believe that one of the gravel roads that led to my home was out to kill us. I have a long list here. I flew off that road into a soybean field in a Chevy pickup with my boyfriend. I fell asleep on that road while listening to Lionel Richie sing Penny Lover. You know, Penny Lover, 'cause it feels so good. I did a 180-degree turn into the opposite ditch while my mother screamed and held onto the wheel. On another day, a separate occasion, I took a hard left and drove into a culvert with my pregnant mother and my siblings in the car. My sister drove into a tree and spent the afternoon pulling glass out of her forehead. Now, my memories of this road are a bit like a Stephen King novel. Lots of teenagers, inanimate objects, homicidal threats, narrow escapes, only to fall into a gravel road's clutches another day. But these memories of peril and narrow rescue, are the memories I treasure, and these are the stories I tell about gravel roads, and these are the threats that I've carried to my conscious mind. And these memories explain why I'm terrified of gravel roads, why I generally avoid them, and why I also dislike gravel factories. This summer I found myself at the end of asphalt, contemplating an infinite path of gravel. I was out on a slog, which is an extremely slow, middle-aged run, and I had reached the end of the road, and maybe, why not? I was not in a car. Surely the gravel could not get me while I was on foot. I picked up speed, and the gravel was cushiony, and it was a perfect day. And I am not exaggerating, it was the absolutely perfect day. The sky was blue. The corn was in perfect shape. The beans were weedless. The ditches were full of purple-headed grass, tiny sunflowers, bachelor's buttons, and wild roses. Lots of wild roses. I don't know how long it's been since I've seen a wild rose in bloom. Its straggly stems clinging to the side of the road, but as my foot hit the gravel, it dawned on me that the one place where I always see wild roses is on the side of a gravel road. Really any gravel road. Possibly every gravel road I've ever been on in my entire life. I did a quick mental inventory of my memories of the gravel roads of my youth, every one of them, scattered across small towns and in farms across Nebraska and Iowa, and I remembered in one moment the wild roses of that long-forgotten part of my life. I went to smell one, and in case you don't know, there's nothing like it. I went to pick one, and I kept running. At every step I remembered, along the thousands of miles of gravel roads in my life, despite the particular miseries of that environment, of that little ecosystem, the dust, the cars, In my case, in Nebraska and Iowa and Minnesota, the tractors, the white heat in summer and the killing frost of a Nebraska winter, the more I thought about it, the more it seemed that wild roses had been my constant companions in all of those rather bleak journeys, and I could not think of a single long road where wild roses had never bloomed. How different a life that is. How different is a life in which roses and beauty and life are grasping for opportunity than a life that is full only of an infinitely long, dangerous, and lonely gravel path. Running down that long gravel road in Minnesota, I felt one overwhelming emotion. Gratitude for the persistence of life in circumstances that are difficult, for the existence of beauty that exists purely for itself, for my life, preserved against the odds, and for the fragrance of wild roses. In chapter 24 of Judges, we see a people making peace with its memories and with God. Joshua is at the end of his life. He is 100 years old. He calls all the people together, and imagine, if you will, a desert. Possibly thousands and thousands of people gathered together. There are no bullhorns, no big screens, no captions, no toupees. Just a 100-year-old man calling all the leaders and elders together for a history lesson and a lesson in remembrance. God reminds his people how far he has brought Abraham and his descendants. From beyond the Euphrates River, where they worshipped other gods, to Jericho and the land of Canaan. In verse 11, he reminds them. Then you crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. The citizens of Jericho fought against you, as did also the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites. But I gave them into your hands. I sent the hornet ahead of you, which drove them out before you. You did not do it with your own sword and bow. So I gave you a land on which you did not toil, and cities you did not build, and you live in them, and eat from vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. Why is Joshua doing this? Why is he reminding them of where they came from, the Lord's presence, the Lord's hand for 1,000 years? Because he is going to give them a choice that you and I have sometimes, many times a day, perhaps only once in a lifetime. He says, now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. Since we know the backstory, we know the rest of the story. What do the Israelites do? Do they advise the Lord that this desert wandering and manna and trauma-laden trip has not been to their liking and they just as soon find another deity? Perhaps someone with access to modern cookware? No, not on this day. For we know that there are other days where there's plenty of grumbling and complaining. On this day the people answered, because they remembered. Far be it from us to forsake the Lord to serve other gods. It was the Lord our God himself who brought us and our parents up out of Egypt. He protected us on our entire journey and among all the nations in which we traveled. We too will serve the Lord because he is our God. What is it that brings the people of Israel to commit themselves again to God and his laws? I would argue that it is memory. Individual memory, familial memory, and tribal memory that binds them together and binds them together for this journey. This brings me to ask you and myself, To what gods are we bound by our memories? And who do we choose to serve? Are we serving our memories, or do they serve us? And if our memories are harming us or pulling us away from faithfulness to our own covenants with God, is there any help? If in the same moment there is a road full of peril, and a ditch full of wild roses, and a field full of perfect corn, and a sky full of radiant blue, and one hawk freewheeling in the sky, and a blister on the ankle, and a need to go home, and a fear of the home, which detail will we remember, and how will that memory help us choose the right path? And will we choose to serve the Lord? For numerous familial and personal reasons, I have been driven to try to understand this concept, this complex structure of memory, because memories are both destructive and redemptive. I have 5 siblings, 1 mother, 1 husband, 3 children, and on any given day, not one of us seems to agree about any event, and this, I find, is a problem. Since I am a modern person and have no Joshua, sometimes I like to sit with these problems, particularly if I have a sermon to prepare. And today, I have been driven to science. But, thank goodness, since I'm not a neuroscientist and I can't even manage a slideshow, and since I am doomed to be imprecise, I will also try to remember our humanity, and I will try not to bore you or terrify myself with too many details about how a memory is created and destroyed, or the complex way in which we recall the memory back to our minds. Think of this. Our memories live in the hippocampus, which is a great word, but it looks like 2 slender eyebrows in the deepest parts of our brain. But you and I and the poets know that when memories reach us, they can cover us from the top of our heads to the tips of our toes. Imagine this. A memory is created when an experience forces one neuron to send a shower of neurotransmitters, much like spreading water between toddlers across a synapse to another neuron. The ports, and that's basically, a nice metaphor, the ports where these neurotransmitters dock. And the shuttles that ferry them across are built of proteins, just like those toddlers. But you and I and the poets know that a memory is created at the sight of a sunset, the flash of a kiss, or the sight of a terrible event. A memory is recalled when similar neurotransmitters are sent yet again across that perilous synapse, to be caught or dropped. But you and I and the poets know that a memory is carried to us on the wind, in the fragrance of a pie, in the taste of a peach. Memory is affected by any number of circumstances that interrupt the transmission of these complicated neurotransmitters across the synapses, or random additions of proteins to the synapse structure that impair or facilitate transmission. Do you know how hard that is for me to say? Now just imagine shooting those neurotransmitters through a bowl full of Jell-O, which is how I, being from the Midwest, envision the brain. It's a miracle. An absolute miracle. But we, you and I and the poets, believe and live at times as if our memories are infallible, foundations on which to build our relationships, our psyches, our dreams, and our personal dream crushers. But a memory is not a solid, incontrovertible thing that can be handed unscathed from one moment or one person to another. It is more like a cup of sand, a bucket of cherries, or a glass of water that can be pulled out for examination and changed in transport again and again and again. A grain of sand may be lost, A glass of water filled to the brim with rain, a chariot can go bad from too slow a transmission. In my experience, despite their fallibility and malleability, despite the fact that a memory is a selective piece of a moment, our memories can either be a constant reminder of God's presence in the everyday beauty and wonder of our lives, or they can keep us from experiencing life in its fullness and finding God when we need God most. Do you have memories of the sweetest moments of your life that remind you of life's fullness and God's grace? A walk with a friend, a phone call from a beloved hand. Do you have troubling moments of sadness or memories of disappointment or trauma? A public scolding or an awkward fall? The loss of a job or a broken heart? A lost loved one or abuse at the hands of someone you trusted? I do. These memories are the stuff of our humanity. As Emily Dickinson says, to flee from memory, had we the wings, many would fly, inured to slower things. Birds with surprise would scan the cowering van of men escaping from the mind of man. Difficult and beautiful memories are the stuff of our humanity. But when we are considering who will we serve, how will we walk, who will we love, how will we stand, what memories do we choose to remind us of our history? Our capacity to serve and to work God's love and grace. Scientists tell us that painful memories, such as those soldiers bear from battle or those of a child who is abused, can be blunted, can be affected through the interruption of the flow of those neurotransmitters from one place to the other while the patient is attempting a recall of that event. Perhaps some of us could be helped by some of those new treatments and new things that are being tried. But you and I and the poets know that there are other ways to rehabilitate memory that tell us who we are, memories that might tell us that God is unmerciful, that we have been forgotten, that we cannot and should do what we are being called to do. The story that mobilizes the Israelites to remember and recommit themselves to God's plan is remarkable for many reasons. First, it is short. It covers a span of over 1,000 years. It is very concise. But it is most remarkable because it is from God's perspective. God says, I brought, I gave, I destroyed, I delivered. If God told your story from God's perspective, what would God say? In my case, God would say, I brought, I gave, I destroyed, I delivered. But mostly, when I imagine the Word of God in my life, I imagine God saying, I brought beauty out of chaos. The grass, the sky, the tree, the bird, the wild rose, the true love, and you have been allowed to see them all. And from that place, where can sorrow and bitterness come? There can be only gratitude. If we see the Israelites or our memories from God's eyes, it appears there is only good. Yes, we know there is struggle, there is pain, there is suffering, and quite possibly some very terrible food. But at the end, The story is stripped, and we are left with God's version of the story, which is God's hand, God's mercy, and our survival. For what have we survived? And for what do we live? To see the beauty around us, to choose each day who we will serve, and to be faithful to God's commandments, if we can. To smell the wild roses on our rocky path. May we cherish our memories with an eye for God's grace and the beauty of God's creation in each and every moment. And may we all find the courage to redeem memories that hold us back. May you find God's love and God's hand in the beauty around you. And maybe one or two wild roses.